everyone, this is Gene from NYC again with the third video of the night. So, I have a question. And I need to back up my turtle a little bit. What do the Flash, in particular Wally West Flash, Captain America, and Jax have in common? What is one thing that has happened to them all recently? All three of them try to put this up here. Excuse me. All three of them have had their characters viciously maligned recently. I was trying to get a picture where they're all three in frame, but it's not going to work. Sorry about that. But all three of them have had their characters viciously maligned recently. Cap, in this infamous photo, is, of course, this is from Secret Empire, when Captain America was revealed in the comics to be a Hydra agent all along. Most recently, Jax in Mortal Kombat 11 and Wally West Flash in the DC Heroes in Crisis comic, right, has been revealed to be the serial killer, apparently, in the comic. So, the question is this: why did this happen, right? Why have these characters who have formerly been what's what I'm looking for? Who have formerly been symbols of hope, paragons of virtue, symbols of patriotism. Why have they suddenly become people who warp the world and make it in their own image, who swear loyalty to an organization they have been fighting all their adult life, an organization that goes against everything they stand for? Why is a character who is known to be a beacon of hope suddenly now a serial killer? Well, it's simple. The writers don't give a damn. That's why this happens. The writers don't care about the character of these characters, especially since these characters are typically known for their very high moral fiber and moral character, right? But that's just my personal opinion. But the question is, why does this happen from a storytelling perspective? And can you do something like take a character who's a paragon of virtue like Cap, or a patriot like Jax, or a character who embodies hope and inspiration like Wally West Flash does? Can you actually take this type of character and make them a fallen hero? Can you actually take this type of character and corrupt them? I believe you can. You can, because all of these characters, these three characters and many more, are meant to be human, right? They are characters with character, with story, with personality, with motivations. And this is the part I believe that many modern day writers, be they for comic books or for video games, forget. That these characters are characters, right? And they have a following. And what upsets fans, at least in my estimation, even more than the fact that they go from good to evil, right, is the fact that this switch happens, and it happens because there's a major violation of their established character. It was never properly explained in Secret Empire why Cap would suddenly be Hydra all this time. it's not really explained in Jax's ending why a character who has previously never been overtly Afrocentric is suddenly creating an Afrocentric, or I should say potentially creating in a potentially Afrocentric world. And currently, although this is not the cover for it, currently in Heroes in Crisis, it has not been explained yet why Wally West, of all people, would be a serial killer. See, these changes are made to be shocking, to be edgy, to take the character in a new direction. But the writers who make these changes often don't think about the direction. They just randomly do a flip, like it's a literal switch in the head. Oh, Jax was never a character driven by race? Well, he's a character driven by race now. Who cares? Cap has never been Hydra? Oh, well, now he's been Hydra all this time. Flash is not the type to murder people, and if he was, he would turn himself into the police? Oh, well, who cares? You see, the fans care. The fans care. And sadly, I think that's what many writers have forgotten, that they have an audience that reads this stuff, that follows this very closely, that gets deeply invested into these characters, who know these characters, and that's the problem, right? Fans know the characters. Fans know that Cap would not work for Hydra willingly, let alone be a sleeper agent for most of his adult life. Fans know that Jax wouldn't just randomly create an ethno-state. Fans know that Flash would not become a serial killer without some sort of explanation behind it. But because there's no real explanation placed behind these changes, fans are just expected to just eat it up, to smile and like the taste. What this really is poor writing. Because if there's one thing I've learned, and I'm by no means a writer, but there's one thing that I have learned in reading all of my life, it's that there are core elements to a character that must never be violated. Even if you're going to make the character a fallen or evil, you still have to stick to those core elements. I'll use 2 examples from manga, right? Take, for example, the villain of Season 3 from Yu Yu Hakusho, Shinobu Sensui, right? The thing about Sensui is that, as evil as he is, right, one thing has been consistent about him. From when he was a spirit detective and fought for the good guys, how good you want to say the spirit detective is, it's up to you. But from being a spirit detective to now being a judge of humanity, one thing has remained constant. Well, a few things have remained constant. One is that Sensui, and this is brought up in the story, has a very strong sense, in fact, too strong a sense of right and wrong, right? And it is this sense of right and wrong that drives him. It drove him to kill demons back when he was a spirit detective, because he believed that demons were all inherently evil, right? And even now, in the story, when I say that, he's still driven to kill. But now it's because he feels people are all inherently evil and irredeemable. That trait of him being, of him having this stark sense of right and wrong, and this stark sense of justice, is always maintained with him. He is always a very harsh judge, whether as a spirit detective or whether as the villain trying to basically judge humanity and find it guilty in Season 3. That element of him, that he's a harsh judge who only sees things in black and white and is overly moralistic, is never violated. That's why he can go from a hero to a villain, because that element of him never changes. So his downfall makes sense, because his goal really has never changed. He still thinks he's protecting Earth. He's just doing it in a different way now, right? So there's one example of a formerly heroic character who became a villain. But that one element of his sense of justice, was never violated. It was never abandoned. Because if it had have been, then guess what? His villainous turn doesn't make nearly as much sense if he goes from a moralistic, judgmental individual to suddenly saying have views that are more gray, kind of like Yusuke does, right? It wouldn't fit Sensui, especially if Watsuki-san didn't go through the trouble of explaining why Sensui would have this sort of change in sentiment or change in views. Sorry, not Watsuki. Was it Watsuki? No. Nobuhiro Watsuki wrote Rurouni Kenshin. Who wrote Yu Yu Hakusho? Why is his name escaping me? Oh, he married the woman who made Sailor Moon. For the life of me. It's not Watsuki. I take that back. Oh, fudge on a fudge sandwich. I know his name too. It's on the tip of my tongue. I'm just really blanking at the moment. This is what happens when you record live. You forget stuff right when you need to remember it. Y'all can tell me in the comments, because for the life of me, his name is not coming back to me. But anyway, moving on. Another good example is the ninja Aoshi Shinomori from Rurouni Kenshin, right? That is by Nobuhiro Watsuki. And please, don't mention the whole, child porn thing, okay? I know about it. I don't want to talk about it, but I know about it, okay? This is not talking about Watsuki as a person. This is talking about the work he created. Disclaimer. Just focusing on the work. I'm not talking about the creator. Anyhow, the character of Aoshi, right, is another character who is a bit of a fallen hero when he's introduced. He's a ninja who fought for the shogunate. Well, him and his warriors fought for the shogunate. The shogunate lost the war. And now they have basically fallen from being proud warriors who were defending their way of life to being what's the word I'm looking for? Basically being hired muscle for a drug kingpin in the story. But the one thing about them is that even though they are introduced as villains, they are established as being villains, and in particular Aoshi, who have a very strong sense of honor, have a very strong sense of loyalty, especially in regards to each other. This is even proven even further when Aoshi's 4 warriors die protecting him when their drug king boss turns against them. Aoshi gets shot. He can't get out of the way of the bullets. His men take the bullets for him. This causes his brain to snap, basically, and he becomes a villain for a fair part of the beginning of the story and moving into the Kyoto arc. But the one thing about Aoshi that always remains the same, that is consistent in his villainy, in his descent into villainy, and into his later redemption, is the fact that he never loses his sense of honor and his sense of loyalty for his men. Now, it may seem like he loses his sense of honor and his sense of loyalty. After all, he does things like attack his former teacher and almost kill him. He does things like join Shishio, who is the villain in the Kyoto arc, which is basically season 2 of Rurouni Kenshin. But you have to look at things from Aoshi's perspective. From his perspective, his former teacher is being disloyal by not telling him where Kenshin is, so that they can have their final fight. And when it comes to Shishio, Aoshi doesn't join Shishio because he believes in Shishio. He joins Shishio for one reason, to fight Kenshin. Why does he want to fight Kenshin? Because Kenshin, or rather Aoshi, believes that if he can defeat Kenshin, that he will finally honor the death and the sacrifice of his 4 brothers. So even at his most villainous, he still acting with what he perceives to be an honorable intent to honor the deaths of his brothers in arms. Of course, it is exactly leaning on that sense of honor, which is what Kenshin does. He basically does talk no jutsu. People originate that phrase with Naruto, but really it goes back even further. Basically, Kenshin leans on Aoshi's sense of honor and his love for his brothers and his loyalty toward them to get him to realize that everything he's been doing is dishonorable. And that is what gets Aoshi to turn his life around. Now, what's the point I'm trying to make with these two characters? The point I'm trying to make is that whether you're going to corrupt a character or whether you're going to redeem him or whether you're going to do both in the same story, you need to be consistent. That is what the corruption or downfall of Jax and Hydra Cap and Flash are all missing. It violates core elements of their character. Those core elements are no longer maintained, right? Jack's patriotism is sacrificed for a bad ending. Cap's virtues and his positive representation and expression of the American way is sacrificed for a bad comic story. Wally's being a symbol of hope and inspiration is sacrificed for Tom King's Watchmen attempt of trying to make these heroes, frail human beings who are not as morally upright as we would like them to be. And here's the thing, you can work in elements of that. You can show a character losing their morals. You can show a character displaying the negative traits of their more positive traits. You can do all that. But they should never lose their theme. Everything Jax does, good or evil, should be driven by his patriotism. Everything Cap does, good or evil, should be driven by what he believes are virtues and positive expressions of American values, right? He's Captain America. He's supposed to be the paragon of everything that is great about America. Now, you can flip that on its head, right? You can say, well, the idea of freedom, this is what happens when it goes too far, right? You can do that, but he should never lose his purpose, his thematic purpose in the story, which is to be a representative of America, of the best in America. And Wally should never lose that, again, heroic spirit. Even if you're going to corrupt him, you still have to stay true to who he is as a character. When you do things like suddenly make him a serial killer without explaining why, when you do things like make Cap a Hydra agent without explaining why, when you do things like have the most, well, not the most, but maybe the second most patriotic character in the Mortal Kombat games, create a brave new world where apparently only people who look like him exist, you violate the character. And when you violate the character, you need to start over. So, that's my opinion. TLDR, even if you're going to corrupt the hero, stay true to who they are, right? As the saying goes, to thine own self, be true. So anyway, I hope I've made some sense with this. I know that a lot of it was rambling, but I'm hoping that you can pick out the sense in the rambling. And again, I hope you have a good day, good night, have fun. Whatever you're doing, do it well. So have a good night, everybody, for the third time now. Bye-bye.